Welcome. I believe we're only going to hit 105 today.
Oh, it's cool then, huh?
Yeah. I'm actually going to go out and make a snowman a little while too.
Hey, you didn't wear a windbreaker to work today?
Absolutely, have to. Yep. If it was only 104,
I was lucky. I got on the boat for about 2 hours today, so spent a couple hours in the morning on the boat, and now everything's good.
Well, that's the nice thing. You've got the water is right there next to you. I still have a little bit of a ways to go to get to the water, even if it's just Lake Mead. Which, by the way, if Lake Mead continues in the direction that it's moving, it won't have much water in it in about 20 years anyway.
Well, that's a political conversation about avocado growers in California. I think 70% of the water goes to farming in California.
Yeah, absolutely. From what I understand, Lake Mead serves parts of Arizona, southern Nevada, portions of northern Nevada, southern California, and also, Victor, isn't it also parts of Colorado? Or
Mexico.
Comes from Colorado, yeah. But we got the Four Corners.
Yeah, so
it's Arizona, California, Nevada, and then a portion of Colorado as well, too. Yeah.
And Mexico.
Does it go that far? I don't know if we actually put anything that far down. Could be. Yeah, no matter what, there's still a lot of people using water. I took a trip down to Arizona, down by the Grand Canyon on the Western Rim. And there were areas down there where you're driving down in what was once 50 feet underwater. And now there are roads that get you down to areas where people go whitewater rafting.
Very cool.
Yeah, but the problem is, like I said, at one time or another, it was probably 50 feet underwater because you can still see the tide marks on the rocks.
Yeah, well, that's an issue that Californians have to handle real soon.
They're going to have to, or I think Nevada, we should just turn off the faucet for them.
That's a real possibility right now.
They're using way too much. Sorry, California.
But you're growing avocados for $11 a piece.
Exactly.
We can grow avocados somewhere else. In California, and using 75% of the water.
Yeah. And then their oranges, I don't know. The navel oranges come from California, I think, don't they? But I'm
not sure.
Florida oranges were just fine with me. I had 2 of them in my backyard when I was growing up. I loved it. I had fresh squeezed orange juice every day for breakfast. All right. Well, let's get on with the show. We got a lot to talk about because, as everybody is aware of, we had our first preseason games last Saturday in Chicago. Not exactly the outcome we wanted in the win-loss column, but then again, it is preseason, so the win-loss record doesn't really matter. Although that does bring me up to Don Shula again. I remember he once said that he tried to play and win every single game, whether it was regular season or preseason. He wanted to practice winning.
Well, you always do. Marv Levy had a different approach though in Buffalo, where he just didn't care about the preseason at all. So who knows who's right with that?
You know, and I saw it. Somebody typed it or wrote about it the other day. I think it was on Facebook. Somebody said something about with Brian Flores, you're never going to find out exactly what he's thinking. He's coming out of that Bill Belichick school of coaching. You're never going to know exactly what he's thinking, and they're not going to roll out the entire playbook in the preseason because they don't want you to know exactly what they're going to be throwing at you once the season starts. And that makes sense. But I still think that you want to try to instill that winning attitude in the locker room, especially for a young team like this. I think it's important.
Establishing that attitude early is important. But at the same time, the staff has a plan, and they're going to go about that plan the best way they see fit.
Well, and let's jump in, and I want to start off today talking about something that you sent me on Sunday, and you told me make sure I take a look at this and get this into the show. So we want to talk about PFF, Pro Football Focus, and Pro Football Focus, since for about the last 10 years, they developed a system where they grade everybody's play. So they grade the quarterbacks, they grade the running backs, everybody, and an analyst grades each player on a scale of either -2 to +2, according to how he did on a particular play. And then from there, the grades are normalized to better account for game situation. And they're finally converted to a 0 to 100 scale. So with that in mind, and one of the things we were going to talk about a lot this week was the pass protection. And I think we also need to talk about the run protection as well. But when it comes to the pass protection, because those were the stats that you sent over to me, and the PFF grading system, what it does is it isolates the role of each pass blocker with an emphasis on avoiding negative plays. So the faster that you allow a defensive man to get into the quarterback's face, get a hit on the quarterback, pressure the quarterback, hurry the throw, whatever, impacts you negatively or positively if you do a good job blocking. So for Saturday's grades, Matt Secure at center, he graded out the best with an 81.5. Jesse Davis on the right side at the tackle position, he graded out at an 81.3. Then you had Robert Hunt at the right guard, 75. But here's where we hit the problem. Solomon Kinley at left guard. I'm sorry, I had that backwards. So you got Secure, you got Jesse Davis, right tackle, Robert Hunt, right guard, because that's to his blind side. So that's good. Those numbers are good. But on the left side, starting with the guard, Solomon Kinley graded out at a 45.7. And the left tackle, Austin Jackson, 31.8. And I don't think the run blocking was much better. What do you think?
Well, with me, it's more about the pass pro. I think you can plug somebody in the running game. But this makes a lot of sense now why Liam Eckenberg was seen playing left guard last week, because they know they have a problem. Now, Austin Jackson has a potential of being a bust. We know he's young. We expect him to develop probably a little bit faster than he is right now. But our left side's in a lot of trouble. I mean, we are giving up entirely too much pressure at the tackle position, and as well as at the left guard and left tackle.
Absolutely, and and it is a good thing that's Tua's. It's not his blind side, but still, if you are giving into the pass rush that quick, that means that if Tua's trying to throw to his left, he's got a guy in his face almost immediately.
Well, that and Tua is short.
Absolutely.
That's another problem with that. And that was one of the problems that, that people that are critical to us had said, where too many people want to compare him to Russell Wilson. But he is a short player. And that's hard to see when those offensive tackles are 6'6", 6'5", and they're getting pushed back in the quarterback's face. He's not tall enough like a Peyton Manning to throw over him, or like a Tom Brady. He's not that tall. So, yeah, you can talk about blind side and play side all day. He's still the only left-handed quarterback starting in the NFL right now, correct?
I believe. Well, isn't Lamar Jackson, isn't he left-handed? I can't remember.
I think he's the only one.
Okay.
But he still has to go down to that side of the field to make throws, and with those big offensive tackles getting pushed back and the guard getting pushed back, he's a short guy. So they got to fix that problem right away, and that makes a lot of sense why Liam Eckenberg was there last week at left guard from right tackle.
Do you think this is something, if it becomes a bit of a problem, do you see the Dolphins trying to use more of a moving pocket?
Well, you can do that. You can run dash protection. You can do some more rollouts and do all that, but it's going to limit now he's a half-field player. He's not a full-field player. He's only playing half-field. But that makes a lot of sense, too, why they went out and got Greg Little on the trade this week for a 7th-round pick.
Yep, that happened just yesterday. And we released some players yesterday, and I didn't grab that. I was running my wife to the airport this morning, so didn't get a chance to take a look at that. But those were players. I wasn't really worried when I looked at those players. I knew we were getting down to the 85 cut.
Yeah, from 90.
From 90. Then next week we go down to 80, and it's the week after that. The 31st of August is the week that we get down to the 53.
Wow, they're going from 80 to 53 now?
Yeah. Yeah, I was shocked when I saw that too, but you think about it, you've only got 3 preseason games, so they're allowing you to go 80 into that last week, and then before you finalize your roster for your final week going into your regular season.
It's so hard on players because, if you're going to get cut, you want to be cut in the first wave that happens. And it used to be from 80 to 63, I think it was, or 65.
Yeah, 65.
So at least then you can get another job. When you all go out at the same time, it's so hard to get another job. I really don't like that process at all.
Well, here's the one thing that they did do again this year. They did it last year because of COVID. They've extended it to this season that the practice squads are going to be 16.
That's insane.
It is. I think it's a little insane.
They don't even practice anymore. There's no 2 days anymore. There's no practice anymore.
I know.
What do you need 16 guys holding clipboards for?
Makes no sense to me.
I remember our guys, we had 5 practice squad guys, and usually we had 2 linemen. So they had to go both ways in this heat for the entire practice. Those guys were getting murdered every day. I couldn't imagine having 16 of those guys to then say, "Hey, go hold the dummy for me so I don't have to." That's absolutely insane for 16 practice squad guys in a league where you only have 17 hitting practices in a year. And it's not having 3 days. It'd be like 3 a week like we used to. We used to hit Wednesday, Thursday, Friday every week. So I can't even imagine what that many practice squad guys even do.
If I'm not mistaken, most of the practice guys, aren't they pretty much like on the scout team? So you insert them in with the playbook or as much of the playbook as you can try to figure out of your opponent, and that's what they're in there for?
Well, that's all card work. I mean, everybody knows what to do on scout teams. But that's where you got your backups to rep. That's where you got, okay, you're not the starting center, you're not the starting tackle. You're going to take most of those scout team looks. Because, again, back then we only had 5 players on scout team.
Sure.
Now, those players aren't taking any reps. The starters are taking the reps. The 2s aren't taking any reps. And the 3s and 4s, essentially, are holding bags the entire practice. There's no reason to have that many guys around that aren't legit contenders.
Well, that's what I'm wondering if they decided because they had to go, and it's got to change. Obviously, I think they're going to have to change it somehow because I agree with you. When I saw that we go from 90 to 85. Then we go from our 85 to our 80. And then from 80, you get that big drop off to 53. I'm thinking, okay, there's got to be a reason. That's the reason they let them keep the 16 on the practice squad. But like you said, I've never seen a whole lot going on the practice squad, never heard a whole lot about it other than scout team is what I've heard, but maybe they're not even doing that anymore. So it doesn't make any sense to me for those guys to even be there other than it's just a way to give a couple of guys a check that otherwise wouldn't have gotten one.
Well, I wish I get that check because I'm pretty sure the scout team players make more money than I did as a rookie starting in New York.
Probably, considering what we've talked about.
I made 120.
Wow. Yeah, and it's amazing. I was talking to somebody else the other day about the salaries and the way they compare. And I told him, I said, it's the same as trying to compare Jack Nicklaus and his career earnings, which at one time were number 1, to Tiger Woods or anybody else that's on the tour now with the way that the sponsors and the amount of money that these guys make for winning a golf tournament. They make more money for winning one tournament than Nicklaus would make in 2 seasons.
Well, we saw the same thing with Tom Brady versus Josh Allen's contract. So Josh Allen's contract is more than Brady's made in the last 17 years for 6.
Wow.
I mean, the money's so much further ahead now. Like I said, the cap, when I first started the NFL in '94, the cap was $19 million a team, and now it's $219 million per team.
Exactly.
So people are making way more money than what we did, but it's all irrelevant. Back then, a good house would cost you $120,000.
Sure.
So it's all irrelevant.
Sure. Well, and times change and inflation and cost of living increases. But I want to ask you this because this is something I always thought about. They keep saying that the salary cap it'll go up and it'll go up and it'll go up because the league keeps making money. But at what point is the league making so much money? The players are making so much money that they're already pricing a lot of the average fans out of the stands. they can't afford to go to a game. I mean, for a family of four to go to a Miami Dolphin game, considering the tickets, parking, and concessions, you're talking at least, if you're a spendthrift, you're talking at least $600-700, and it's probably over $1,000.
Yeah, but that's the problem in major sports today, and that's what's turning a lot of people off. And that's why you're also seeing the rise of like the X Games and skateboarding and all these other sports you never heard of before, because it is too expensive to take your family to a game. Even I was fortunate to grow up in a household that did well for themselves, but I never went to a Bears game. My parents couldn't afford that luxury with 6 kids and all that. So they are going to price the fans out sooner or later, but as long as the corporations keep paying it, they'll keep going that way.
Sure, and that's the thing. You see, and it's everybody talks about it. Going to the Super Bowl, it's so many of the corporate sponsors, and it's all these different big businesses that they're the ones that are buying up all the tickets. They're flying in their clients, their employees, and it's just a big party for them. You don't really see a whole lot of you see a few, but it's not like the days of old when it was mostly the fans going, rah, 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 I'm here to support my team. It's all corporate stuff now.
And that's why you have a lot of empty stadiums as well.
Absolutely.
Corporate people don't show up to every game. They're not going to show up when you play the Jaguars or when the Cleveland Browns come to town. No one's going to a Dolphins game. So it leaves a lot of empty stadiums versus fans who actually love the team, would love to go. But it's so, I mean, tickets, you can get a ticket for under $175 a piece.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I told you, I know you're not going to be able to make it out here for week 3 against the Raiders, but I think I told you what those tickets went for. I was like, when I bought them, and I had to get them. I had to go see that game, but because I'm here. But I was shocked at how much I paid per seat. I mean, it was way above $250.
Well, I can only imagine, especially in Vegas, because everybody's being comped now. Everybody wants to come in for a sports book. The NFL maybe a $10 billion industry on paper, but when you add in gambling, it's $112 billion a year. So I can't even imagine how high the tickets in Vegas are going to be. But that's also, I couldn't come in. That's Howard Schnellenberger's celebration of life at FAU. So I'm even skipping my son's game in Gainesville to go to that.
Oh,
so
wow.
I really wanted to be in Vegas for that game. But I have Coach Schnellenberger and I have my son to be concerned about. And I even told my son yesterday I'm probably not going to make his game in Gainesville so I can go celebrate Howard Schnellenberger's life.
Well, I know that Coach Schnellenberger was a big part of your life, and that's important. So I'm sure, hopefully, I'm sure your son, I'm sure LJ understands, and he's going to have you. He's had you at all of his games all this time anyway, other than.
Yeah, that's the great thing about my son is he knows better. I mean, he grew up in this life. He understands certain things. So it's one game I'm going to miss that I haven't missed any games in 12 years.
Sure.
So, I mean, it's like one game. I'm sorry, son, and it saves me to drive to Gainesville, which is forever.
Well, and to think about it, you can always say, hey, look, you can look at Jimmy Johnson's sons. I mean, he missed them growing up. And they've patched things up, as he said at his Hall of Fame induction speech. But that was the life, being an NFL head coach, being a college head coach. I mean, he missed them growing up, and so LJ's been lucky. He's had you there, basically coaching him pretty much his entire life, and spending time at all of his games. So to miss one for your coach and mentor, I think that's a pretty good trade-off.
Well, that's the entire reason that I stopped coaching at Florida Atlantic University. Was I finally came to the conclusion I wanted to raise my own kids. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to raise somebody else, and I didn't want to work 325 days a year. I didn't want to work till midnight and then go back to work at 4:00 in the morning and couldn't even see my kids. So that's the whole reason I got out of coaching, was to raise my son John and my daughter Brooke, and they both have turned out fantastic, and I wouldn't have changed any of it to see them grow up the way they both have.
Well, that's good. And hats off to you. Haven't met LJ yet. Haven't met your daughter. Looking forward to it. I'm sure they're great kids, though.
Yeah, we're fortunate.
Absolutely. So let's get back. I want to go over some of the numbers. This is just the starters. And I want to go over their snap counts. And I think from snap counts, I think we can read some things into this. Mac Hollins, I've been saying all along, I think Mac Hollins is definitely going to make the 53-man roster. Maybe even as the 5th or 6th wide receiver, the way the injuries are riddling that room right now. He had 19 snaps, as did Jalen Waddle, and then Jakeem Grant had 14.
Well, he's got a definite chance to make the roster. I was surprised. I was really excited about Waddle. I know he had one catch in the game, but that punt return I thought was fantastic. And then he came back and saw Hakeem Grant. So I think Hakeem Grant might be the guy in the hot seat for the Dolphins to move on and get one of those 5, 6, 7 receivers that are all on the roster right now. So I was really impressed with Waddle being able to take over the punt return duties. And I'm sure he can do the kickoff duties as well. But I thought that was a great move by them.
I did too, and I agree with you. But I think, you watched Jakeem Grant, he rattled off that 40-plus yard return. And I think Waddle's was 20-something, 27, was it, or something like that. So I think you see, obviously, the first return was Waddle. And then later, the second one, we saw Jakeem Grant. So I think he saw what Waddle did, and he's like, well, I better go out there and better that. Or I might be the odd man looking in.
Well, he might be. I mean, that receiving core is deep.
Absolutely. And that brings
Waddle's not going anywhere. We all know Waddle's going to be here no matter what.
Nah, I think we cut
Grant, he's a little short. He's getting a little older, and there's a lot of young depth on that wide receiving core. It could be Grant is in a fight for his life right now, and I think he responded perfectly in that game.
Yeah, he did. And he got 14 snaps as a result of it, so he's in there. At least they're giving him a chance to show us what you got, show us that you belong here. Not so much.
I think what he's saying is, I think Grant's saying, the rookie can't beat me, is what he's saying about Waddle right now in his own head. He's fighting for those last couple roster spots at the wide receiving core, and I think he made a case for himself in the game. So as much as I'm impressed about Waddle, I thought Grant did a great job as well.
Absolutely. And, if like you said, he's fighting for one of those last roster spots. And we all know a lot of times on that receiver core, you're going to make the team the last cuts, probably because of your special teams play. So he was able to demonstrate that he's still got it when it comes to the special teams play. Now, we'd like to be able to see him catch the ball more when he's playing as a receiver. I think he had too many drops in seasons past, and not the greatest route runner either.
Yeah, probably not, but he has instinct.
I think you got to have instincts if you're going to be a return man. So hopefully we can see a little bit more of that.
And he's little.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, but going back, if they cut Grant and thought Waddle could handle that responsibility, I don't think it's necessarily a bad move. I mean, they got to create some room in that wide receiving core, which appears to be deep this year.
Yeah.
So, again, we're not in the regular season. We haven't seen the injury bug that we've seen in the past, especially with guys like Devontae Parker. But it's up for grabs right now in that receiving core, and there's going to be a couple guys that get released that are very, very good football players.
Absolutely. And that's what is, that's what's horrible in a way about the National Football League is, you can be a fantastic player and you're still not going to be good enough on this particular team or any other team. So I think the Dolphins, if they think about moving on from Grant, I think they'll hold out till the very end, obviously the last cuts, and who knows, maybe they'll try and swing some sort of a deal, maybe even for a little more offensive line help if they need it.
I don't see that happening. A guy like Grant, either you love him or you don't like him. And I don't see anybody making a trade for him. So it's just a matter, do the Dolphins love him enough to overlook some of the other guys on that receiving core and the value he gives you in the special teams game? So that's really what we're going to have to wait and see. But there'll be no trade with him. There'll be no 7th-round pick. There'll be nothing for him if we release him.
Not even, you think?
Remember, 27 players on every team are going to be released at the same time we release Grant.
Sure.
27 times 32 There's 300 guys on the street.
Yeah, that's a lot of guys. I didn't even think of that. What I'm thinking is, you got, if you're a team that doesn't have the deepest, the biggest depth, or the biggest wide receiver room as far as talent, and then you lose one of your guys that you knew was going to be on your 53-man roster, was going to be one of your top 3 or 4 receivers, you lose him to an injury, would you at that point pull the trigger and say, okay, look, let's see if we can get Jakeem Grant. We'll give up a 7th-round pick.
I don't see that happening. With the way that they're doing the cuts now, I think that's way too hard. If I'm a GM, I'm just going to wait till the 53 cut day. And then now I have the 16 guys in every practice squad by 32 teams, right? So that's what, 360?
Yep.
And then I'm going to have an additional, was it 11 per team, which is another 333. Man, I have 500 guys on the street. I'm sure I can find somebody that can fit my needs. Now, if Grant is sitting on the street and he's in that pool, I can see a team grabbing him. But I don't see it. I don't see teams anymore claiming or not claiming somebody off waivers, but not trading for somebody before they are on waivers. I don't see that happening anymore with the way that they're doing the cuts. There's just too much talent on the street at one time. I'm better off as a GM just to wait and see what lands in front of me.
That's a good point. It's something I'm still thinking somewhat of the old ways of doing it, where you had more cut down opportunities. You didn't cut as many people in that last cut as we're going to go from this year from 80 to 53. That's crazy. And then, like you said, you throw 16 guys on a practice squad. It's just a lot of players. But I know one thing: I don't think Grant's going to be on the practice squad.
I don't know how that works anymore. I heard somebody like in year 3 still on the practice squad. We had 1 year, if we were activated off the practice squad in the first year, we couldn't go back on the practice squad a second year. So, and then actually I put in the union, I put in a clause that said if you had 2 practice squad years back to back, that we count that as a credited season for your retirement. Is one of the things I put in when I was a union rep. Because if a guy made practice squad 2 years in a row and didn't make a roster, I thought that was significant enough to warrant them at least an accredited season for those 2 years.
I think that's fair. I absolutely think that's fair.
But now it's different. You can put guys in the practice squad whenever you want. I can go research the rule for what exactly it is.
Maybe that's something we should I'll take a look at that, and maybe we can talk about that next week. I think that's something that I would like to understand, the practice squad and how they utilize it a little bit more than I do. Which basically is not at all.
Yeah, it's completely different than when I played.
Yeah, absolutely.
As soon as you got 3 games on an active roster, there was no practice squad for you ever again.
Interesting. Yeah, I never really understood all of the rules of the practice squad, even going back to the days that you played. It wasn't anything, I don't think at that time. I was more interested in the guys that were going to be on the 53 that I was going to see on Sundays.
It's completely different now. You almost have a second team just on practice squad. I don't even know what you do with those guys.
Well,
you're not hitting every day. So what do those guys even do? They just hold bags?
Probably.
It's a hell of a living to hold bags. I mean, other than maybe being a water boy for the Dolphins, making $60,000, being 180 just to hang out and practice every day and hold bags, I would do that. I could come out of retirement just to hold bags for $180,000 a year on the practice squad.
I might do it just for $180,000 a year myself. Take a nice beating every day.
I would be the best bag holder you've ever saw for $180,000 a year.
I'll call Coach Flo and tell him you're available.
I'll throw my shoulder in there if I have to.
All right, let's move on to the tight end snaps. Mike Giuseki, 6 snaps, but he was targeted twice, caught both of them, 56 yards, 18 yards after the catch. I will say one thing. I went back and I watched the game again. I originally said that I thought Tua underthrew that pass severely. It wasn't as badly underthrown as I thought. He just didn't hit him completely in stride. Mike did have to slow down just a bit to make that catch, but he still had some separation. But it slowed him down enough that he was caught. Had he hit him in stride, I think that would have been 6.
Well, Giuseki is tearing it up today at practice right now with the Atlanta Falcons, from what I'm hearing.
Good.
And Tua's rifling it into him all day. Giuseki, he's making himself be known right now as a playmaker, and he's really stepping up knowing he's coming into a contract here. So Mike Giuseki is doing a fantastic job, and he is turning on the heat right now on everybody.
But the thing is that the Dolphins only use him on 3rd downs and then sometimes 2nd and long.
Well, it goes back to where we've been over the last couple of years, especially with Tua coming in. You know, we did more Giuseki with Fitzpatrick than we've done with Tua. But now as Tua gets more comfortable in the offense, he's picking it up better. Hopefully we get him more involved. But right now, Giuseki's doing everything to tell everybody, I need to be a key part of this offense, and you need to get me the football right now.
Yeah.
And he's doing a fantastic job. Even today at practice, he is tearing it up from what I'm hearing.
Well, and I think if we use him on 3rd down and maybe 2nd and long like we did in the past, okay, that's good. But why not throw him in there on a 1st down, even if we do plan on running the ball? Let's throw him in there on a 1st down and run away from him, because everybody's going to think that it's going to be probably a pass play to Giuseki, and we'll fool him a little bit, which brings me to the running game.
You have your play action game down.
Exactly.
And they're going to do a lot of play action with Tua. That brings us into the running back, and I think it's like we thought. I think it's going to be running back by committee.
Yep.
And I thought all 3 of them played really well last week. So I still say Gaskin, to me, is my favorite, but there's something to be said about the other 2 as well.
Well, Salvan Ahmed, he looked great. I was very happy to see him in there because at first I didn't even think he was going to play. My issue a little bit was with Malcolm Brown at first. I thought he did a little bit too much dancing, but then again, like I said, I went back and looked at the tape. It was that offensive line. And most of the time, when we got there down there in that goal line situation, we handed it off to him. We're running either the middle or over to the left side. And that run blocking, it collapsed. He ran into a brick wall and he got caught in the backfield. He had 9 carries. This was his stats, 9 carries for 8 yards. He had -7 yards before contact, but he got 15 yards after contact.
Well, Austin Jackson got worked. I mean, he got really worked in that game. That's why we probably went out and we traded for Greg Little. That's also why we had Liam Eckenberg over there at left guard. So the Dolphins aren't done with that offensive line.
No.
But it's a wake-up call for those guys who are there right now. If they want to keep their jobs, they need to play better at the point of attack, and they weren't in the last game. So we have the Falcons this week, and the reports out of camp today were not any better. The reports out of camp today was the offensive line just got manhandled by the front 7 of Atlanta.
Well, definitely something has got to. This has been going on for way too long. I can't think of the last time, maybe going back to 2008 or 2009, the last time we had a halfway decent offensive line, and even then we had problems.
It's tough to find a good, it's what I always tell people. So you look at the Dolphins line, the last 5 years I was in Miami. That was Marino's last 4 years, and I was spent another year after Dan retired. But 4 of us all came from the New York Jets, and we were 3-13.
Right.
So we were supposed to be the worst offensive line in football. But somehow Jimmy Johnson brought all 4 of us who started for New York all down here at the same time. And then we wound up shoring up what the Dolphins didn't have. You had Keith Sims, and you had Richmond Webb and Ruddy, and then James Brown, myself, Everett McIver, Cal Dixon. We all came in. So it was very interesting.
Do you think it was a matter of coming in from the Jets, 3-13? Do you think it was a matter of the change in the environment? And I mean, not weather-wise. I'm talking about a change in the coaching, the personnel at coaching, and the philosophy and the scheme.
All of that. It was Jimmy Johnson's first year. And Shula had loaded up with free agents the previous couple of years trying to win a Super Bowl before he retired. So we had to dismantle the team basically, and we were a playoff team. We still had Dan Marino.
Yep.
We still had great defensive line. We had great linebackers. We had a good secondary. Our defense was top 5 in the NFL. So all we had to do was plug a couple holes on the offensive line, and we were a 10-win team every year.
Well, I'm trying, and I remember that last year, especially the last year that Shula was the coach, I think was the worst. And I think they proved something about the football being a full team sport. There's no I in team. And if I remember right, that was in the 94 season. If you had listened to Sports Illustrated, Pro Football Weekly, all of those, every pundit out there, everybody that covered football, all the magazines, all the prognosticators, everybody, we didn't even need to play the season that year. Might as well just cancel the season and award the Lombardi Trophy to the Dolphins because they were going to be that good because they had 19 former first-round draft choices. And I remember telling somebody when we were talking about that season coming up, I said, I think it's going to implode because you're going to have way too many me guys. I'm number one. I was a number one draft choice. I want the ball more often. I want the accolades. I want the spotlight on me. And I think that's exactly what happened. We got started out okay, and then all of a sudden we just went backwards because the guys were fighting over just everything.
Yeah, it was a heck of a rebuild. But again, all the Dolphins needed was a couple pieces.
Right. And
Jimmy was smart enough to go out in the rest of the league and bring us all in. You know, again, I was cut sitting on the street, and Jimmy brought me in. So I was very fortunate. So, again, you know, we're talking about the offensive line right now. You have Austin Jackson and Kinley who aren't playing very well.
Right.
You got Liam Eichenberg trying to work in over there. You have Greg Little, who we just traded for. So the Dolphins are done, and they know if they can find those last two pieces somehow, that we have a real chance this year.
I believe so, and I believe that Austin Jackson, I think he may be on the bubble as far as this. He may not even make it. He's in his...
Oh, he'll take the team. They have way too much money invested.
You think so?
Austin Jackson's not going anywhere, but he's young, and he just may not be ready yet.
This is his third season. He's 22 years old. And he's not getting it done right now, but you said they got way too much invested in him to just let him go. So,
he has a ton of upside. I mean,
okay.
At 22 years old, I was still playing in college, more or less my third year in the NFL. So I'm a patient man as well. But if you're not ready yet, then I will find somebody who is ready.
Now, what do you think about Solomon Kinley? Same situation. This is his third year. And he's not really making it work all that good because of the grade that he got was a 45.7.
And that's very poor as a guard. It's not that hard to play guard. But again, he's on the hot seat. So if it's the new rookie, Liam Eichenberg, slide him in at left guard. You may make some moves around right now. Who knows what tackle might be cut? That you look at him around the league. And you look at him and you say, okay, I can get 8 games out of him. I can get 8 games out of that veteran right now that's going to play well for me.
Sure.
So until those 500 guys hit the street, I don't think anybody's going to know what that answer is yet. But I don't see trading happen. I don't see a trade. I think some bet's going to get cut, just like Little was going to be released. And the Dolphins are going to be actively searching for a tackle that can just bail us out for another year.
Well, and that puts us into that danger zone that hopefully this front office that we've got isn't going to play that game. Oh, we're just one player away, and they go out and get that big flashy name that's just not going to pan out and just cost us a bunch of money. I hope that doesn't happen. I hope we can.
Anybody that we get can be released. We're not going to trade for anybody unless something weird comes up and we have one player that somebody wants and we want their tackle they're going to release. He's maybe played 8-9 years and has been a good player.
Okay. And that's the smart way to go about it. Especially at this point, I agree with you. They're not going to trade for it. Thinking about how the roster cuts are going to shape up this year, which is strange. This is going to be an interesting year. And again, we still have COVID protocol. I just found out yesterday. I don't know if you heard this, and I don't know if this is going to be something that's going to start in all the stadiums now. But the Raiders just announced yesterday that you are not getting into Allegiant Stadium to attend a game unless you prove you are vaccinated.
Well, we talked about that potential lawsuit.
Oh, yeah.
Because HIPAA violation.
Yep.
But at the same time, guess what I did? I made an appointment for tomorrow to get vaccinated.
Well,
and
good.
I was against the vaccination because I'm a healthy person, and I never get sick. At the same time, I had a friend call me today who runs a hospital out west. They're out of ICU beds because of the Delta variant. So I'm going to, if I can't travel, I can't go to games, I'm just going to go ahead and get the vaccine and be done with it.
Well, I got the vaccine because my wife was going to get it. She's, of course, she's Chinese. She wants to go back to China. She was thinking, first of all, she's scared. She's scared of the virus a little bit, but also she was thinking, I can't go back to China and visit my mom, visit my brother, the rest of my family, unless I have the vaccine. And I thought, I can't be selfish and say, well, you go ahead and get the vaccine, but I'm just going to remain unvaccinated. I thought that was selfish on my part to do that. So I went ahead and got it as well. I didn't have any side effects from it. My arm was sore. That was it. You getting the Pfizer shot?
I'm getting Moderna. And I'm getting my son Pfizer.
Okay.
The reason is my son has got to produce 2 negative tests a week for COVID. But if he is vaccinated, he doesn't have to prove anything.
Oh, wow.
So I told him, I'll go get it with you. So him and I have an appointment tomorrow. We're going to go in and get vaccinated together just so we're not left out of anything, or we have to travel or whatever it is for football, we'd be able to do so.
Sure. Well, I'm actually now, I'm kind of glad, looking back on it, I'm kind of glad that I did get vaccinated, because obviously I wouldn't have been able to go to the Raiders game if I didn't, or I'd be running out there to get vaccinated now to save that god awful amount of money that I spent on those tickets. And then I got the season tickets, and I'm traveling from Vegas down to Florida and spending weeks at a time with a rental car and everything else. So pretty expensive for me if I hadn't gotten vaccinated to not be able to go to games. Now, so far I haven't heard any announcements from any other teams about the vaccination protocol, but I agree with you. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of fans, especially season ticket holders, because they've said they're not going to refund money if you're not vaccinated. So I got a feeling we're going to see a lot of these challenges under the HIPAA law. I think we're going to see an awful lot of challenges to these rulings and these decisions.
It's still not going to help us for this year, though.
No.
All those are going to be in federal court, the Supreme Court. We're not going to get a ruling for another year. So you're taking a chance of, losing your tickets or not being able to attend events or be able to fly. I'm just going to go ahead and get it done.
Yep.
I'm not really for it, but at the same time, there is a problem, and I'm trying to be a good example for my son to get the vaccination and be done with it.
Yeah. Well, I hear you, because I wasn't really a big fan of it either. But I had different considerations that I had to take into consideration to go ahead and just do it. So let's get back to football. Otherwise a good game, but one interception, it happened to be his last play, kind of ruined it for him. I think he had, a 62.3 or 63.2 quarterback rating, 8 of 11 for 99 yards in the interception.
Well, they go 3 and out in the first series. Then he comes back. He throws 8 in a row.
Right.
And then he throws a pick in the end zone, and they don't put him back in. I had a big problem with that.
I did too. We talked about that.
With only 9 minutes to go in the second quarter. One more series wouldn't have hurt him, just to see if he could bounce back from that interception.
Well, and you want him to bounce back. I mentioned that on Saturday.
Well, he even admitted it was a terrible throw.
Oh, yeah.
He should not have made that throw. I would like to see him come back from that, and they didn't let him. And that was a little disappointing, in my opinion.
Well, and like I told you, I thought it was from a confidence standpoint. I thought you got to put him back in there and let him have a good positive series just for his confidence.
Well, I think it leaked over to the press conference, because when he was asked about what happened, he said you can't turn the ball over in the red area. Well, no one uses the term red area. And when you're the leader of a $1 billion franchise, people are listening to what you say.
Yeah.
The fact that he said red area and not red zone, I mean, he was thinking about that interception still after the game. Yep. He should have been able to think more clearly than to make that statement.
I agree with you. Yeah, red area everybody knows it's the red zone. But,
Hey, you want to know what interesting fact about that?
Yeah.
It's not the red zone. You want to know where that comes from?
Yeah, I'd love to know where that comes from.
If you look at Bear Bryant and Don Shula's playbook from pre-1980, the red zone was when you were backed up inside your own 20 because you were in danger of giving up a safety. The red zone that we call it now, when you're going in from the -20, was actually called the green zone.
I was just going to say, was it? Yeah, green zone makes sense.
Score,
yep.
The green zone. But somehow, some guy got promoted back in the 80s, and he switched what it meant. Red zone meant you're going to score versus you're going to give up a score. So some idiot who didn't know the terminology and the history changed the name from green zone to red zone.
Well, it's a red zone if you're on defense. But I certainly get it as an offensive. Yeah, as an offensive player, I would certainly understand. It makes more sense for it to be a green zone. Hey, we're inside the 20. It's time to put the pedal to the metal and score. We're not going to get out of here with just 3.
That's exactly what it used to be called.
And I used to, and I hate it because I don't
know if it was Bill Walsh. Maybe it was Bill Walsh that changed it.
Well,
it'd be interesting to see who actually changed it because I haven't been able to figure that out yet. I know pre-1980, it was called green zone when you're going in to score, and it was red zone when you were backed up.
Well,
somehow it switched.
That makes a lot of sense.
I don't know.
And when do you remember when that? Because I don't even remember. It's been so long that it's been the red zone. When did that happen?
It was pre-1980.
Okay.
I think I called the green zone in college in '90. I think we still called it the green zone, not the red zone. And that was 1990, but that was Don Shula's playbook from '71, basically.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and here we go back to Snellenberger. So obviously, well, that's it. That's an interesting tidbit. I'd like to find that out too.
They went back to Bear Bryant and Paul Brown. Paul Brown called it the green zone. So what coach was arrogant enough to change it to the red zone and discount Paul Brown and Don Shula?
Who knows? Who knows?
I think it was probably Walsh. I think Bill Walsh was probably the only guy that was that arrogant.
Could have been.
It certainly wasn't John Madden.
No, not a guy like Madden. Madden's too much of a purist, even today. You know, I know he doesn't go out there and do anything anymore, but he was always a purist all the way up until he stopped and retired from the broadcast booth. Let me ask you, looking at the matchup, looking at the box score, basically, what else other than what I highlighted in the red circles, which was a lot of stuff, in the yellow stuff, we were pretty even with the Bears as far as first downs, 15-12. Rushing first downs was tied at 6. Passing first downs 8-6. What stood out at me was we destroyed them, I thought, on third down efficiency, 6 out of 15. They were 3 out of 12. But when you look at the total plays, they had 51 and had more yardage than we did. They had 6.6 yards per play. We had a paltry 5.2. And then you see all the other stuff that I highlighted in red. We allowed them 171 yards rushing on only 24 attempts. We had 29 attempts for 118 yards, and we were also 0 for 3 in the red zone. And the 2 turnovers.
Well, the only thing that really matters is the red zone efficiency. But also remember, Justin Fields stayed in for a lot longer.
Sure.
You know, he's probably a number 1. So the Bears played with basically 2 number 1 quarterbacks to our number 1 quarterback. And Jacoby had a great game.
He did.
Jacoby, for us, played very well. I thought Justin Fields played very well for the Bears. But it shows you how deep our secondary is. Our secondary is so good, especially on third down. They can play press coverage. They can bail. They can play cover 4. It doesn't matter for them. I think they play very, very well. And I think the story is Nick Needham. I think Nick Needham is coming out of nowhere right now to prove that he's ranked ahead of Noah.
Oh, absolutely. He had a great game. I made a notation of that. I mentioned Wilkins, Igbenogany. And I learned how to pronounce that, and the announcer said it the other day during the game. So now I know it. He had 2 really nice plays, but then as you noticed from my notes, I notated it later on that he came out in the second half and it was like, what are you doing? He got turned around. Justin Fields turned him around. I think it was like almost on 2 consecutive plays. Not only was he turned around based on the throw, but it was like the receiver juked him right out of his shoes. So he looks good for a couple of plays, and then he looks just horribly bad on the opposite side of that spectrum 2 plays later.
It also depends who you're playing with. If he's trying to cover for somebody else, are they not getting the calls out in time? Is somebody unsure of what they're supposed to do with their responsibility? And then the defensive line wasn't the same either, because that defensive line played outstanding.
Yeah.
What's his name? Racombe Davis? I can't pronounce his name. I'm a Polish kid from Chicago. I have a hard time with names. But Davis, the nose tackle, played unbelievable. I think they're all stepping up in that front seven. So maybe he was turned around a little bit, but when he's been in there with the first team, he's played very, very well.
Yeah, you know what? And you're right. When he was with the first team, he was able to hold his own. Even though once the regular season starts, he's probably not going to see a lot of time with the first team. But I think there was a lot of good plays, especially on the defense. I think the defense is strong. You got to think we were without not only Byron Jones but also Xavier Howard. They didn't play Saturday. So when those guys get in there, and I just saw an article yesterday, the Dolphins are extremely deep in the defensive backfield.
It's the deepest core I can remember.
Same here.
There are guys that will be cut to that secondary that are going to make another roster this year.
Oh, absolutely.
I promise you that.
Absolutely.
They are that good. They are ball hawks, too. They find a way to get to the football. It's very exciting. It reminds me of the days of Surtain and Madison and Terrell Buckley.
Those are the days that we all as Dolphin fans long for. Those were days that were just incredible how good those guys were.
Well, this group's close, if not better.
I believe so. Especially with the 2 starters at corner, those 2 guys, they're shut down. And I think Byron Jones, after the little bit of a lackluster season he had last year, I think he's going to come back this year. It's going to be a little bit of a statement season for him. And Xavier, I think he's going to have a bang-up year as well, because he's got something to prove. He's going to be like, look, you guys had some faith in me. You came back to the table. You renegotiated my contract as I was unhappy. So I'm going to show you, and I'm going to prove it to you. Because he wants to get in that room and renegotiate starting next February or March. I thought, we've touched on everything else other than the offensive line with some of the penalties, the lack of blocking, lack of protection on certain sides. I thought overall it wasn't bad especially for the first preseason game. Obviously, I'm of this mindset that I want to see the win. I want to see that W. Our starters, basically, for all intents and purposes, our starters, they won their matchups, I think, for the most part.
Well, do you realize since Flores has taken over the Dolphins, we are the second least penalized team in the National Football League?
And that hasn't happened since Shula roamed the sidelines.
We're number 1 on third down defense.
Yep.
So, I mean, the defense is playing great. We don't get penalized. I mean, it seems like Flores has taken all the best qualities from Belichick and brought them down here, and then left the things that Belichick isn't great at back up there. I think we're making better personnel decisions than they made in New England at times. I mean, Tom Brady leaves, and now they can't win a game.
Right.
Even with a superstar at quarterback like Cam Newton. But we're not being penalized. We're running the football well. We're playing good defense, and we're getting after the football and making turnovers. That is a winning recipe all day long. So I'm very excited about the way this thing's turning out right now.
I am too. And that was one thing. I remember the announcer on Saturday said that. He said, watch this Dolphins team. They run to the football.
It's energy, up-tempo, and it starts from the head, which is Coach Flores.
Yep.
And I think everybody's buying in. I think we have a system now that works. I think we have a staff that works. I think we have a plan that works. So to me, everything's been great. I'm watching this team get better week in and week out. Would you like everything to be perfect? Of course you would. It's not going to be. The National Football League.
Exactly.
Sometimes you just need a little help. You can draft all the right people. It doesn't mean they're always going to work out the right way. So we're having a little bit of an issue on the offensive line, but that's easily fixed. I mean, that is a fixable issue.
That's definitely a fixable issue, as is the interception that Tua threw. Coach Flores came out and said it himself Saturday right after the game. He said it's fixable. It's wasn't a big deal as far as he was concerned.
Deep. Well, everybody wants Tua to throw deep.
Yeah.
And he took some shots down the field. He threw the ball well deep. He had the one pick in the end zone. All right, well, don't ask the player to throw deep and then hold them hostage when something doesn't work out. It didn't mean anything. It's not a real game. Throw it to the end zone every time as far as I care.
Sure.
Get used to throwing that deep ball because in games, we're going to need you to throw that deep ball and not be scared of throwing a pick. So, to me, it was a learning curve for Tua. Throw the ball in the end zone. No one's calling for your head because you throw a pick. Was it a bad throw? Yeah, we didn't really care for it, but you'll go back in. You'll meet with your coaches. You'll figure out exactly what went wrong, what would have been a better decision, and the next time you see that same situation, you'll make a better decision.
Which brings me to this week. And I think somebody mentioned it or asked it in one of the press conferences the other day, and I still didn't get exactly a clear answer from Coach Flo, and I don't really think we ever will. I think he comes out of the Belichick school with that type of information output. But do you think that this week, because there's only 3 preseason games, this is the second one, do you think this is the week they'll do the full dress rehearsal like they used to do in the 3rd preseason game?
I've been wrong about everything. I'm not even sure. Like I said, I would not have pulled Tua with 9 minutes to go in the second quarter with only 3 games. So by the way, from what I'm seeing right now, I would expect Tua to go the entire first 2 quarters and then be done. I would like to see that third quarter, that first series of third quarter, but I'm not sure if they're going to do that or not. That's what I want to see out of that second game. I don't know what we're going to see. It's a moving target right now.
Yeah, but I have to think that not after this week 3, the 3rd and final preseason game, I don't think we're going to see the starters that much, if at all.
No, but what they might do is switch it up, which I have no idea what they're doing. This is all new to me right now. So usually that 3rd or 4th preseason game, depending if you had 5 or 4, that was your dress rehearsal. You go into the 3rd quarter, you'd play your special teams, you'd do all that. I think they may split this year. And what you might see is first, second quarter, first series of the 3rd, and then the 3rd game, they'll put together the kicking teams, knowing who they're going to cut in that last cut.
Sure.
Because the cuts are different now, too. You're not going from 80 to 65 to 53. Now you're going from 95 to 85 to 80 to 53. A lot different. So I think the 3rd game is going to be more special teams and seeing the rest of the game, and then you'll see the ones out there for at least 2 quarters, and then 1 series in the 3rd. I think you have to do it that way, but I'm not Coach Flores, so I'll wait and see what he does.
It's definitely going to be interesting. I think it's interesting to watch it all across the league. Obviously, we have our eyes on the Dolphins. Final thoughts, prediction for Saturday night?
Offensive line's going to play better.
Have to.
Tua's got to roll out and keep throwing that deep ball and complete as many as he can to get confidence for the season. Defense, do what you're doing. And then somebody step it up in the kicking game, whether that's Waddle or we're going to keep Grant, and Grant's going to make some plays happen on special teams.
And I think Grant's going to have to, or he may be the odd man looking in.
Very good possibility.
All right, well, we're going to find out Saturday night how far they've come from the first preseason game and see how much closer they are to being ready to go week 1 of the regular season in Foxborough. John, it's great having you with us again, as always. I'm looking forward to the game Saturday night and looking forward to another great show next week.
Great being with you, Brad, and go Dolphins.
All right, go Dolphins. This is Brad Michaels and John Bach for Dolphin Radio. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching or listening. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. And for more great content, check us out on the web at www.dolphinradio.com.